Apple cider, the Battle of Berlin, and AC/DC are all on this day. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is November 18th, 2022. It is the 322nd day of the year. You got 43 days left. It is the 46th Friday in the 46th week and the 58th day of fall. There are 33 days left until winter. Today is National Apple Cider Day. In the United States, apple cider, also known as soft cider or just cider, is an unsweetened non-alcoholic drink made from liquid extract from apples that is boiled, sometimes pasteurized, but not always. Apple cider is unfiltered and usually cloudier and tangier than apple juice, which is filtered and they remove all the solids. Apple cider is often made from a mix of apple varieties, and it takes about 36 apples or 16 pounds of apples to make a gallon. All right, let's see what else November 18th has given us. 1872, Susan B. Anthony and 14 other women are arrested for voting illegally in the United States presidential election of 1872. One thing leads to another, and they put her on a coin. 1883, American and Canadian railroads institute 5 standard continental time zones, ending the confusion of thousands of local times. 1909, 2 United States warships are sent to Nicaragua after 500 revolutionaries, including 2 Americans, are executed by the order of Jose Santos Zelaya. 1940, World War II, German leader Adolf Hitler and Italian Foreign Minister Ciano meet to discuss Benito Mussolini's disastrous invasion of Greece. 1961, United States President John F. Kennedy sends 18,000 military advisors to South Vietnam. 1970, U.S. President Richard Nixon asks the U.S. Congress for $155 million in supplemental aid for the Cambodian government. 1993, in the United States, the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, is approved by the House of Representatives. If you followed the news during the 1990s, you heard about NAFTA, I'm sure more than a couple dozen times. So what was NAFTA? NAFTA was an agreement between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It's an extremely complicated agreement, but it can be broken down pretty easily. Before NAFTA, imported items were taxed. After NAFTA, they weren't. When you have tariffs or taxes on imported products, that just means it's going to be a higher price because they're just passing that down to the consumers. So by removing those tariffs and taxes, this would incentivize trade and lower the price of goods. Critics of this agreement said this would just open the door for American companies to move to places like Mexico where they can get cheaper labor. And the people that wanted it just said, we're going to get cheaper goods. But really, most people thought it was a mistake, including billionaire Ross Perot. This was his whole platform. In the 1992 presidential election, Ross Perot made it further than any other candidate that wasn't considered a Democrat or Republican in the last 100 years. Ross Perot kept saying this is just going to drive jobs down to Mexico and Americans will be out in the cold. Well, a little bit. The reality is most of the jobs that left the United States around that time were heading to China. Very few made their way down to Mexico. And in the grand scheme of things, NAFTA really didn't do too much for the U.S. economy. In the end, trade did increase and things did get a little cheaper. Movies released on November 18th, 2016, Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. Okay, so I tell you all the time that this is a really good movie and it's worth the watch. This one isn't. This movie was horrible. It had a lot of good actors, and I really looked forward to it. I almost walked out about halfway through. This is a war drama about a teenage soldier who becomes a hero after a harrowing Iraqi battle. This movie is just filled with a bunch of flashbacks that show what really happened in this combat situation and how he got these awards and what happened to his squad. It was hard to watch. It had Kristen Stewart, Vin Diesel, Chris Tucker, Steve Martin, and a bunch of actors I never heard from again. I even hated the movie poster. Now, this movie comes from a novel of the same name that was released in 2012. I think the movie had potential. I think they needed to spend a little more time on what actually happened to Billy Lynn. And to be honest, I think they needed to get away from some of the cheesy military stuff. A little of it was just too Hollywooded up and there was too many mistakes. It was kind of bad. When you should watch this movie, let's say you're at a doctor's office and they tell you got a 2-hour wait till the doctor gets there and it happens to be on the television, watch it then. Born on November 18th, 1970, Megyn Kelly, Fox News host known for her work on American Live and America's Newsroom. She hosted The Kelly Files from 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern and on weekdays. She began hosting Megyn Kelly Today on NBC in 2017. In 2018, she had a show called Megyn Kelly Today, and she made some comments about the appropriateness of wearing blackface as a Halloween costume. All she said was, when I was a kid, it was okay as long as you were dressing up in character. Which, when I was a kid, I wouldn't say it was commonplace, but it happened and nobody really blinked an eye. I'm not saying it was okay, it just wasn't that big of a deal at the time. Well, this caused quite an uproar and her show was canceled. Now she has a podcast and she just moved it to Sirius XM, and I believe she got a pretty good contract. Those podcasts are taking over the planet, I'm telling you. You can make more money on a podcast than you can do working on a sitcom these days, it seems like. I gotta get on my podcast. There was a pretty interesting movie called Bombshell in 2019, and it was all about working at Fox and the old head of the company, how he was a bit of a creep and stuff like that, and all these women had to kind of put up with him in a lawsuit that happened. She was played by Charlize Theron. It was a pretty good movie. Interesting. Died on November 18th, 2017, Malcolm Young, Scottish rhythm guitarist and backup vocalist for the hard rock band AC/DC. He became a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for his continuous contribution to rock music. He joined a Rolling Stones covered band as a teenager. Some people consider him the best rhythm guitarist in rock history. He was in AC/DC with his younger brother Angus. Malcolm Young had been diagnosed with lung cancer, and by 2014, he became too ill to continue to perform. Young died from the disease on November 18, 2017 at the age of 64. Sadly, his older brother George died a few weeks before him on October 22nd of the same year, 2017. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.